Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I have made it to MSP Community Live, which as always means that Ray is not here. So Josh, thank you for filling in, of course. How's it
Yeah,
going?
and great. Glad to be here. I'm here, which means either you or Ray isn't here. So,
I guess you're
it's like
not
a
really filling in at this point, though. You're here all the time now.
no, yeah, it's like an if-then statement. Like if Ray, then Matt, then Josh. But either way, we're here bringing you the news and what's going on in the MS community. Usually every Friday. So, how's your week been?
It's been good. It's been interesting. So we have ChannelCon coming up next week. So there's been a lot of prep work internally. We're doing a pre-day at ChannelCon, not trying to advertise that, but that's been some of the main focus this week. Of course, dealing with the aftermath of CrowdStrike and all the questions and opinions that came around that as well. How about you?
I am prepping to work my aid station in the middle of a woods in Wisconsin for my ultra marathon that me and my running club put on. So I am going to be disconnected with no cell service, working a little Blackstone propane grill, serving up grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to people who are at mile 31 or 66 of their 100K or 100 miler race. So kind of the complete opposite.
So I feel like we should clarify for anyone who might not know how ultras work, right? So if you run a marathon, you're getting gels and things like that. But when you're doing ultras, you need real food, right? Not just
Yep.
pure sugar all the time.
Yeah, it's I'm making like baked potatoes, PB&Js, grilled cheese, quesadillas. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do have some soda, candy, and stuff like that. But yeah, you need to you more calories and some more real food. So it's a fun time. I love it. And then hopefully, one of these years I'll go back to running it. But I have such a good time running the aid station and one of the aid station captains that it's hard. So
Awesome. All right, so I'm you have caffeinated Matt today, which is not a common thing. I'm like I had too much coffee this morning. I'm still drinking it, so this could be an interesting show. So let's start with the topic du jour, something that I know you probably had a lot going on this past weekend. I did too. Thankfully, not boots on the ground style anymore because that's not really my thing these days. But let's talk about CrowdStrike, the kind of elephant in the room, the big thing going on. Um, a couple different ways we can swing at this. Let's start with how were you impacted by this? Did you have a lot of remediation work and things to do and help clean up, or were you more dealing with the ops side and coordinating things, or did you have nothing? Because
yeah, luckily we don't use CrowdStrike. We use a different EDR product. We do have one client who is a co-manager that ran it, and luckily they only had like two devices. So was in communications with him. Hey, here's the fix. Here's what can we do? What can we do to help? So it was more or less just in the community trying to see where I could help our peers, and get information, share information that way. However, just because we don't use it doesn't mean that there isn't activities to be done. And I'm going to plug my IR games that I run with Bob Miller, Matt Lee, Stephen Kellogg, Ethan, couple different people in the MSP community, because this is the exact scenario that we train on. And although in that scenario, it's, hey, ransomware encrypted all of your clients, you have to restore. But we've seen with CrowdStrike that wasn't a security incident. It was an unfortunate IT mistake incident, and all of those were down, and you needed to restore each of them by hand. Right? This is the exact scenario we train our game, and internally,
yeah,
what I told our team is, hey, I know we've mentioned this a couple times. We should do this, but now, hey, like we should really do this because today it was CrowdStrike, tomorrow it could be this product, and the next week it could be this, right? This could really happen to any product, and we need to be prepared. So using it as an opportunity to have those discussions, to create those plans, and have no one really wants to think about it because it's a terrible day. It is like one of your worst days ever, but you have two chances to think about it beforehand and make the plan, or while everything's on fire and you're scrambling and figuring out what to do. So
so a couple things I want to pull out of that and highlight as we deep dive into this a little more before we get to the Reddit stories. One is I swear we didn't plan this, but you in your opening, totally nailed the perfect discussion point by saying, luckily we don't use CrowdStrike. And it's just such a thing that we should talk about, that's the reaction. I know you didn't mean it this way, um, but I have heard that sentiment all over the place from this event, from any right. The CrowdStrike isn't the first vendor or software application that's had this type of issue, but the sentiment always comes out as, "Man, thank God I don't use that," or "Good thing I don't use whatever the application having the issue today is." And in your response, you nailed it. It's such a good opportunity to think about what you're going to do when it is something you use, whether that's a security incident, whether that's an availability, a bad update. But like in this incident, it's a good chance to do things like, do I have staggered updates? Do I have a way to reduce the blast radius when something comes up, right? Um, if you catch yourself saying what you said, and again, I know you didn't mean it this way. If you catch yourself saying, "Man, thank God I don't use this," like stop and think about, it's going to be something I use next time, inevitably. And
Yeah,
for, like, from a risk management perspective, you have to assume all of your tools and all of your vendors will eventually have something like this. Um,
yeah,
I'll give
I
you a chance to
mean,
respond
100%.
to that. One more thing I want to highlight is that you kind of highlighted it. You kind of said it. You guys can tell I'm on Mountain Dew today and caffeine. This is abnormal word salad from me. I would say it is a security incident, right? A is just as much a part of security as C and I, and it's like the forgotten leg of the triad sometimes. Like all your stuff going down, that's a security problem too.
It's true. I guess I more meant it wasn't like a malicious actor, doing it, that we're aware of anyway, right? Like
Yeah,
you can put your tinfoil hat on and all that stuff, but as far as we know, yeah. So it could be considered a security incident, but not threat actor backed or anything like that that we're aware of or even assuming at this time. But yeah, 100%. And then what I really liked about this incident too is competing products and other people in the community were like, hey, let's not bash CrowdStrike with this, because like you said, this could happen to any software. Like we need to be empathetic and just help each other, and it's not the time to be like, oh well, I don't use this, and being on a higher pedestal, because it's like, well, what are you going to do when it does become that product?
yeah.
It could happen. So um, but it is insane just how much media attention it got, how much things it caused. I mean, obviously, stoppings at many Fortune 500 companies, at airports. Like it's just definitely, thoughts go out to everyone that it's involved in, are probably still working on this a week later. And probably next week and weeks to come.
Um, I have heard so many responses, and so many people have asked me, Matt, if you were still uh, choosing tools and managing infrastructure, would you dump CrowdStrike? And the answer is like, well, not necessarily. There would obviously be a discussion about, do we keep doing it, but that would be a very emotional knee-jerk response to say I'm dumping CrowdStrike. But the other thing I've seen is there have been discussions about now eliminating single points of failure in your cloud infrastructure. And that's one of those arguments taken to the extreme where you say, how far do I go with this?
Yeah.
Right? The example I used, you may have seen it on Discord, was, okay, so does that mean you're going to like dump cloud identity completely now so that you don't have a single point of failure? Like, how far do you take this? So I'm going to take the opportunity to finally ask someone else this, because I've been getting asked it all week. Josh, if this was a product that you used in your stack, what would your response be? Would you dump it? Would you have a discussion? Would you change your architecture to reduce dependencies or single points of failure? Like, what would you do?
So, and I've said this before, like I won't judge any company or whatever on a single incident or a security incident. What I will judge them on is how they react, how they the communications, basically the post incident, right? And then if it happens again, if it's a continued trend, then I'm out. Because again, a security incident it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and it can affect and will affect everybody. what makes the difference to me is how it's communicated, how it's handled, how it's acted upon, and how you're looking to improve, right? So for me, the communications are like, okay, this happened. What are we doing to make sure that it doesn't happen again? And they are a highly reputable company. They're whatever rankings you want to look at. They were one of the top EDR products in the market. And that's
Mhm.
not, that's not my opinion on it. I don't use it. That's just, I mean, look at how many people use it. Look how many awards and things like that they've won. So it's arguably again one of the top ones. So um, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. I mean, I know that they've had communications. They've been definitely media interviews and things like that. And I can't say that they've. I don't think that they've entirely botched it. They've been providing updates and things like that with it. It's been a huge deal, right? So we're not going to see the
Yeah.
full outcome of how they've responded for a couple weeks. But to me, that's what I would do, and that's how I personally feel we judge them is on their actions of how they recover, and then how we can improve going forward.
So I think what I'm hearing is too soon to say, which kind of agrees with how I would handle it too.
Yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't be you wouldn't pull the ripcord, but you'd certainly like say, hey guys, let's decide as a team, is this what we're going to keep doing or not? But
yeah.
you need more info to make that decision. Oh, okay. Any other comments on CrowdStrike before we move on? Before we get to the stories in the post or the ostensible purpose of the show?
No, I just, again, if this did happen to you, thoughts go out. If you weren't affected by it, but you want to simulate, hey, what would happen if all my stuff went down? Come check out our IR games. We'll put you through that scenario and really get you thinking. Again, join our Discord too. If you want to vent and share your war stories about how it affected you, please feel free. That's what our Discord's there for.
Just for venting, that's really the primary, just like all internet forums,
Yep.
complaining is really the main purpose.
Yes.
Okay, I think we can get to our stories now. I think we have a couple.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics here,
Ooh, this is a
incentivizing
spicy
text to
topic.
sell. I don't plan to have my text upsell with each support call, but if they spot a valid need for a product we sell, we have a hand in closing the deal, I want to reward them. Do any of you folks do this? Do like one-time spiff or share the monthly margin, etc.? Now, one thing, and I probably have said it on this show before, and if because I say it a lot, in the MSP, I mean, we're in the managed service provider, and it's the typical. We're providing a service. I don't care what position you're in, and this goes for non-MSP. Like you're in like sales, right? It's your every position is a sales position, and
Mhm.
to what extent is that, right? Building relationships, that's part of sales. Customer service and part of sales. Like even if you're not selling a specific SKU or product, you are part of the sales cycle and doing sales. Um, as far as the techs, I mean, they're going to be the ones that are on site. They're going to be the ones that are in the network, and whether they don't necessarily have to bring it to the client to try to sell. Like, hey, I see your firewall is out of date. We should update this. Right? You can go to your technical account manager. You can go to pre-sales engineers, but these are things that you should be looking for. Should be trying to help not only obviously your company, but the client as well. So I absolutely, I mean, whatever incentive it takes, like getting that idea that hey, you're not just a sysadmin. Happy sysadmin's day, by the way. But you're not just a sysadmin that's sitting in a closet, right? You need effective communication. Building those relationships, and basically, what is it that always be selling or always be closing, right? The ABCs, whatever
Yeah.
buzzword you want to throw out there. So I'm interested to see if you agree or disagree here.
I think I quasi agree. Um, I think we have slightly different perspectives, though. So you are correct in that, or I shouldn't say you're correct, right? I'm not the arbiter of truth here. I agree that all of the positions have some kind of growth and sales role and responsibility to the client to help them get what they need. The way we did it, though, and the way that I think that I would do it again is that we don't financially incentivize sysadmins or technicians to make recommendations. It's just not part of the way that we did compensation packages. And the reason for that is that it was exceedingly important to us that we could go to the customer and say, your techs have no financial incentive whatsoever to make a recommendation. And almost as if now, our salespeople were good at this too, but it was almost as a way to say, yes, the salespeople, of course, have some financial incentive, but your techs, the people who are your, I kind of hate the phrase, but the trusted advisor mindset, um, they are solely looking for your best interest and things that are going to make you better without having any reason to recommend something, then we think you need it. Um, for us, that seemed to work well. Now, I can see that it might have worked well simply because of the type of personality we ended up having as sysadmins, and that they didn't feel like they needed the financial incentive to make recommendations. I could see scenarios where there were hires that wouldn't make those suggestions without being somehow compensated for it, but we didn't have that issue. We it worked out well for us to have the like almost the line of demarcation between the technical people and the sales account management type people, and that the client could sometimes take a recommendation that the account manager person then literally turn to their primary tech, or at some points we were calling them technical account managers or just sysadmins or whatever the title was, and ask them if they agreed with that. And of course they did, because they were all making good recommendations to begin with. But hearing from the person they trusted, their primary tech, would just close it almost every time and say, "Oh, we really do need this," and give them reassurances. It's not just someone trying to fill a quota. So
Yeah,
I think I mostly agree, just not
I,
completely.
yeah, I no, I do agree with that, and I think the incentivizing was more not so much like a portion of the spiff or anything like that, but more, I guess, of training. Like I guess to me, when I say incentivizing, like I guess for the betterment of both. But I've
Mm,
never worked at an MSP where we got like a percentage of it. What we do get is referral bonuses. So if we get net new clients, whether hey, it's setting up a meeting or things like that, and it leads to MRR, we might get like a referral bonus.
yeah.
Um, but no, not like a portion of the sale or anything like that, because I can definitely see where that would go, and like you're potentially making things just to try to get just the spiff and things like that. So but more or less just incentivizing that your tech should be looking for these opportunities and should be doing them. Um, I guess whether it's like performance reviews or things like that, that's where I was leading more, not so much like a spiff
Yeah.
or a percentage on it. So, but yeah, fully agree with that. But yeah, I mean, it's just have that mindset to be looking for those opportunities and looking for those things, because you're bettering the client environment, and obviously if they're buying stuff from you, then you're bettering your company. We're interested, like our MSP is pretty interesting, where even our technical account managers, to my understanding, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think we're all salaried. I don't think like we really have commission structure, just because we're also like an ESOP as well. So the better the company
Mm,
does, the better we do. But eh, we're we're trying to make these decisions, and doing the sales, and we're really more of a we're very partner focused, partner centric, being a part of their team. So we don't really have traditional sales roles in that sense. So I think it's interesting, and I do like that, right? Where we're all just the partner recommending things that we should have for the clients.
and man, it's like we rehearsed this, because your last sentence segued into the point that I was going to make, and that is the last soapboxy thing I'll say on this subject is that clients can tell a mile away if your quote unquote recommendations are going down your line card and saying, "Oh, they don't have this service. Let me make sure they get it," as opposed to things you feel like they actually need. Um, I've seen that happen so many times where the quote unquote consultative selling is really just ensuring that they bought everything that you offer, right? As opposed to having a discussion about what fits what they're trying to do and their risk profile and
Yeah.
things that they're trying to accomplish. And it's probably obvious to anyone who is on this show. I know it's obvious to you, Josh, but man, clients can smell that like down the street, and they will you've lost the trust when you start doing that.
I mean, I've said multiple times to our clients and stuff in like the consulting meetings, like I'm not even going to show you this because it wouldn't be a fit. Like we can discuss
Yeah.
it, but it literally would be a waste, like a waste of your money. It wouldn't like the amount of money you're spending for the amount of risk you're decreasing. It just isn't worth it. We can have the conversation if you want, but like it's not worth it. So,
Right.
yeah, let's speaking of sales here, since we're on this topic, I think it segues right into our next one. Um,
All right.
so yeah, the next story we picked out is one that is very recent. So this owner is expecting a very quick turnaround from outside sales, and this OP wants to know if it's reasonable. For the first time ever, the MSP hired an outside salesperson. He's excellent with people and has several leads in the works already. He's been with the company for about a month and a half, but he hasn't closed anything yet, although he's been close. However, the boss is already talking about firing him to save money. He's paying him $16 an hour, and how's that ever been in an MSP sales role before? He's professional, great with people, understands tech, and he's already making rows. Ultimately, it's the owner's decision. I'm just the operations manager, and if I really push hard, he may just keep his job long enough to make a sale. He's wondering like what are the expectations? Is the owner being unrealistic? Is this something you would expect? Um, Matt, you want to take this one first?
Yeah. $16 an hour to do sales. I hope there's a big commission structure on the back end of that, is my first thought.
Yeah, I was also thinking that too, and not to take anything away from the person, because like I mean, the OP made him sound very complimentary, but I'm wondering if that's just somebody younger who has promise that really doesn't understand the whole like concept of your funnel and things like that, because that's a pretty low wage.
Yeah. So that aside, a month and a half would be a pretty short cycle for a lot of these. I'll ask, for us, many of the accounts we closed had sales cycles that were in the works for months. In some
Years.
cases, years long relationships, right? And you finally get the close like a year or two later, right? Maybe you hadn't heard from them in 6 months, and all of a sudden, like they have some kind of issue and they reopen the conversation. I mean, I guess I could see occasionally something falls into your lap that closes that quickly, but it's pretty rare.
Yeah,
So
even
a
if you
month and a
were.
half without a sale is totally normal to me.
Yeah, I feel that even if you were like here's a hot lead, like that's still I mean, a 1 to 2 month process, right?
Yeah,
Your professional sales, you're not, you don't just have a booth and you're selling like items, right? Like it's like you're building those relationships, right? It's the sales funnel. You at the top of the funnel down to the bottom of the funnel. So you have the awareness, right? Like, hey, we're out here. This is what we do. And you start making those contacts and you follow up and, hey, you ask them about their kid's baseball game or soccer game or whatever. And you just kind of, build that rapport, build that relationship. And then eventually at some point, hopefully someone, hey, I know you do this. Like I have this problem or whatever. And then you start getting ready to close that deal. I mean, especially in the MSP process, like it's months. I mean, months to months, if not years to years, right? It's you're constantly building that, and it sounds like he's doing the right thing, right? He's building these relationships, getting out, having the good people skills, but to be mad at him for not making a sale in a month and a half is a complete overreaction.
yeah. I get the impression that the owner in this case doesn't really understand what sales is. He has the impression that, and again, maybe this is wrong. I'm just going on the info in the post that the owner almost thinks the salesperson is going out and selling like door to door encyclopedias back in the day, when
Yes.
really the sales process is more about talking to the business owner, understanding their problems, hearing what they've tried, what hasn't worked, what problems they're having, what their goals are. Um, like just going up and saying, hey, we can do managed services, that like everyone can do that, but going in and understanding what their issues are, what they're trying to accomplish, and more importantly, what they've tried to do that hasn't worked so far, as opposed to just jumping in and say, hey, we can do 365 like the last three guys you fired tried to do. All that takes time. It's not selling widgets.
I mean, I would
We've run
say
into that a lot
the
with
quickest I've
people.
ever seen is like 3 months. I mean,
Yeah.
that's super quick, right? Like, hey, we're sick of our old provider. We need somebody immediately. They might do like a one project, but then to actually sign them to MRR, I mean, to go from that signed contract, I mean, you're looking at least, I would say, bare minimum 3 months. And,
Yeah. I would agree.
yeah.
Now, I do think maybe a reasonable expectation would be that there are some accounts he's working or potential prospects he's working that he thinks down the line could close in a month and a half. But to expect anything to close that quickly, I think, is unreasonable.
100%. So yes, to your point, both Matt and I say your owner is being unreasonable, given the information in your post. So hopefully,
So there's one interesting angle while we're pulling up the next story to that. And if you think about the way most MSPs work, they start with owner-led sales, right? They've been doing sales at the beginning, and most of the initial um, accounts and clients come from the owner's own personal network. And the thing that's strange to me is that process isn't really any easier than having a sales guy go and do it. Yes, the network and relationships are pre-existing, but I'm surprised he doesn't, or he or she doesn't realize the length of time to start doing that. Like, I wonder what the sales process has been like up to this point for the expectation to be that they happen so quickly.
I mean, yeah, even if you're going like you're cold calling, you're going door to door, like I mean, again, you're going out there. You're maybe going to like business referrals, or you're going to like chamber of commerce, or different networking events just to meet these people, and that's your first contact. And yeah, there's so much that goes into it, and you just got to be patient.
Yeah. Okay, we've discussed it to death, and if we don't move on, we'll end up covering one story this whole episode. Oh, we did two.
We got two plus the CrowdStrike. So let's see what's next here. What's the next one we want to discuss? Okay, so how much emphasis to put on self-service? To summarize this one, it's the first sentence. To what extent should an MSP aspire to have self-service portals and management for their clients?
You know what I think is cool about this story? There's not really a right answer necessarily. You might have a different perspective on this based on your organization, based on the makeup of your clients, based on verticals that they're in, and maybe how long you've been around and how mature your processes are. I'll just give you my perspective, and I suspect it might be different from yours, although I kind of said it's the it depends answer, so maybe that's the same. So for us, we had been down the self-service road to some degree, right? Various client portals, you can click this and run a script, you can put a request and something happens automatically. And I gotta be honest, most of our clients didn't actually want that. We ended up getting not very much self-service happening. Occasionally something would, especially for billing things, like they appreciated being able to go in and change their own credit card or bank information through some kind of payment portal, that kind of self-service. But as far as issue resolution, maybe it's my region, maybe it's the clients we had, but for the most part, clients didn't want it. They like self-service things that we put out there ended up getting very rarely used, was my experience. I'm curious if you have had the same or different experiences with it.
So I think in some cases it can be useful. But I would rather see that automation go behind the scenes, because let's go back to our first topic. If your clients, all they're doing is going to a website and filling out a form, where's your contact points? Where's your relationship building out of that? Like those tickets that come in, like those are your opportunities to converse with the client, build a better relationship, show your customer service, etc. And if they're just going to a self-service portal and clicking the buttons, like yes, all automated, but where's that human interaction, the human element to it? So maybe and obviously you want to do some automation for particular things. Like if it's the same thing over and over again, absolutely, let's automate the heck out of it. Let's lower those things. And I think it depends on the client getting to know them, because if we have a more operationally mature or even cybersecurity mature client, then they may understand some of the things like that, like in the OPU saying that auto elevate. Would you want a client to just automatically approve that, or et cetera? I think it goes back on, well, if they're willing to take on the risk, or let them have that opportunity with that, or just having the training the users and stuff on it. So I'm gonna also hop on the it depends, and I think it depends on your client, right? If they're more operationally mature, this would be something that they might want to look at. But if you have a client who is not very operationally mature, do you want to start building out these processes for them and directing them to this, and trying to work with that? Your efforts are probably best served elsewhere on it. However, again, on the internal side, heck yeah, automate all of those processes.
Yes.
Let's get those that ticket resolution time down, the all of that stuff, the time it takes to do that, so that way we can focus on other things like improvements and building a relationship, projects, etc.
I think that's just the default answer to everything. It depends, and it's the default for a reason.
I mean,
I
unless we
think
talk
there's
about like Pop-Tarts versus toaster strudels, I have a definite answer on that.
what's the definite answer? Pop
Pop-Tart,
Tarts,
yeah, absolutely.
s'mores flavor, especially. That's my favorite one.
The what is the hot fudge sundae one? It's
I think though on the self service, like there are if you can automate or self service things that there's no reason for a human to be involved in, increase the license quantity, change payment info, maybe even if you can create a new user down to self service, that kind of stuff. Um, I have found clients that did appreciate that because they like not having to wait for us on things. The thorny part for us has always been, or was, trying to do self service for things that are broken or not working. Any kind of, hey, run this remediation. Because my thought has always been, if I could get it to that point, I'd have my RMM run that, not have the client go in and click the button to do it.
exactly.
So yeah, there's a middle ground here. There's a useful portion, but agree, depends on your client base.
All right. Well, speaking of, it depends. I think that's the answer to this next, our last
All right.
story here. And this is a really interesting one. That the answer is it depends, but I like the discussion that it brings. Does having a technical CEO hurt or help overall? We don't even need to read the story. What do you think? I mean, that
Yeah, go
is
with
what
the
it is.
headline.
So is the answer it depends? What are your thoughts and what are your experiences? Have you had a technical CEO and then a non-technical CEO?
So of course the answer is it depends. Um, so in the organization I came from, it was started by two people. One was a business person, one was a technical person. Um, that worked out well, and so my it depends hedge on this is that it is valuable to have a CEO who understands the tech, but that doesn't mean your sysadmin should be the CEO. You need to have somebody at the helm who understands business, more so than tech, right? So in my case, it was someone who had been a technical person and then had a business career later on, and that worked out very well. Um, Now, that's not to say, right, there are a lot of successful organizations and a lot of successful vendors that were started by somebody technical. But in my opinion, someone who's more a business person that may have done technical work in a previous life or earlier in their career, that seems to work better than someone who's purely technical. So I guess the answer is yes, but as long as it's a business first person who understands tech as the CEO versus a pure tech person with no business background at all, that would not go well.
Hey, what do you think about if the CEO is in the escalation chain? Like, he's technical, right? Let's escalate things to him. You can't get any higher than that.
So the thing is, that's the reality in the very beginning of an organization. They probably
Yep.
will be in the escalation chain for some time, but that person should be working to get themselves out of that situation. I want to make sure that I acknowledge the fact that when you're starting out, yeah, you're wearing all hats, and you'll be in the escalation chain, and you'll be the architect, and you're probably the person answering the phone. Um, but I just assumed like a slightly more established
Yep.
along their growth path org in my answer.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it can be, I mean, it has a lot of pros to it in that, hey, they understand the day to day. They've been in the weeds. They understand what it's like when you're trying to pitch different products or services or things like that. Like, they have a technical understanding. So you can talk to them on a technical level about those things. They're probably not going to be like micromanaging, versus, hey, we're only going to focus on these KPIs. Why we're not meeting them? Well, if you have a technical CEO, like, they've been there, they understand what it takes to meet those, and they can be more realistic and empathetic on those things. However, it can become a problem when, like, hey, they're still trying to be hands-on, or
Yes.
need to hey, you need to focus on the business and not like the problem solving. So I think, to your point too, like, having a technical leader and then a business leader is a good partnership to have. But at the same time, it is also kind of cool to see a CEO who's not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get in and help where they can as well, even though it's just not their main focus. So again,
Yeah.
it depends, but I think it has more pros than cons. And I think, even if, regardless if you're a technical CEO or a business focused CEO, like, I get it again, it depends on
He's
how
saying
they
it.
handle it, right? Like, there's no better answer.
It changes as you grow, because naturally, once you get to a certain size, the hats split into a CEO, CTO kind of position where you really can't do it. Now, the CEO might still be a technical person, but by that point, he's really focused on the business side of the operation.
Yep.
So I think we basically need to wrap up. This has been incredibly fast, and I think it's because I'm super hyped up on caffeine, but also because it was a really good discussion. So I have one thing to plug. I'll be at CompTIA ChannelCon next week doing a pre-day on incident response, probably not too different from a live version of the incident response stuff you were talking about, Josh. So if you're there, come check out the pre-day. We're having a golf outing Tuesday night. You can get the registration on LinkedIn, and I hope to see you there.
Yeah, I've already plugged it, so I'll plug the IR games. Please check us out. We do live streams throughout the month. We did one with the MMN family a couple weeks ago. That's up on YouTube and all that, LinkedIn, etc. We're doing a in-person one today. That one's sold out, but you can join the one in August. When I say sold out, it's a completely free resource. We only use a ticketing system because there's only so much of us facilitators, so we need to limit the participants. But it is completely free, so please check that out. And then next week, I think both Matt and I are gone, so I don't think there will be Community Live next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll be excited to bring you the stories that we've gathered over the next couple weeks.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Have a good day.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.